I made a list shortly after running the Grand Canyon of things I would do differently personally. And so for you to know what I did the first time, you might have to watch an older video, but I don't want to put you through that. So I will just read you the tips and give you as much context as possible. The first thing is to train more distance. So I was running a decent amount. 20 to 30 miles a week, and I was in the mountains, and I was getting some vertical gain and getting some decent distance. But the fact is that just as the crow flies, it's a pretty long way. As the trail goes, it's a really long way. It's sort of around 25 miles. I'd never gone anywhere close to that. I don't think I'd even run a half marathon at this point. And I was going to go run up and down the Grand Canyon. It was crazy. So train a lot of distance. A marathon training plan is probably good. Even a more than marathon training plan is wise because of the vertical gain and descent involved. Train a lot of distance. If I was doing it again, I would train more climbing. So depending on where you live, that can be tough to find hills or mountains or whatever to climb in. But even with the training I was doing, which I thought was a good amount of vertical climbing, it was really tough getting out on the North Rim. So the more comfortable you can be climbing and the better you can be at climbing, the more fun you'll have in the Grand Canyon. Train a lot of climbing. The next thing I would do is actually bring less food. So I brought around about 4,400 calories, which is just a ton. Even if you were eating 200 calories an hour and you were there for 10 hours, that's still only 2,000 calories. So I probably brought close to twice as much food as I needed, which is just extra weight. It's extra stuff to fiddle with. It's kind of a mess. So depending on your calorie needs and what you need to bring to be successful, I would potentially bring less food myself, but you've got to bring the right amount of food for you. My next tip would be to train at more high elevations. So even though I was training what I thought was an ample distance and an ample amount of climbing, I was only at 2,000 feet elevation. So the north and the south rim are both up, not quite at Flagstaff height, I don't remember exactly, but they're very high elevation. So I would say treat that with a lot of respect because the amount of oxygen that you get in a high elevation scenario is a lot less than down by sea level. So be aware of that and the impact it can have on you and your fitness. The next tip is one that I didn't really expect, but I should have worn sunscreen. We actually got roasted in the sun. It wasn't cloudy. It was fairly exposed once we got in the box, and when we were heading out the North Rim, we were just in the sunlight the whole time. We got barbecued. I would start earlier, before 4 a.m. If you're starting in late October or something like that, maybe you want to change that time, but we were mid-September, and I would start earlier both to stay out of the sun and just have nice cooler weather for the majority of the run. The next tip is to not lean on GPS. So a lot of us have watches like this Garmin Fenix 5, an Apple Watch, a Coros, whatever you're running with, and we can get kind of used to knowing where we are in the course of our run by looking at our GPS. Our GPSs, both my friend's watch and my watch, totally freaked out in the canyon. I think the walls were just too high to get a good satellite signal, and so they had said that we were going probably 1.1 to 1.2 miles for every one real mile we were going. So by the time we were close to the end of the canyon, it said I was 30 miles in, and the whole thing's only 25 miles. So it really kind of threw us off in the middle of the canyon to figure out how far do we have to the next rest stop where there's water, how far do we have left overall, what pace are we going. The whole thing got messed up because of that, because you can't rely on your watch to tell you how far you've gone. I brought some trekking poles with me, and they're really lightweight, nice, Lecky, collapsible trail running poles. Super great. I didn't have a great way to carry them because all of my stuff was really small. My pack was small, my other pack was small. I had a race belt on that was small, and nothing was made to carry poles. If I would do it again, I would bring poles because they were great, but I would bring a dedicated way to carry the poles. Salomon makes a quiver. It's called a Salomon custom quiver that people say is really great. There are some packs or belts and things that have an integrated area that are made to stash your poles. This just became a real point of pain for me, physically, because I would stuff them under my straps or other places, and it was so uncomfortable. They were shaking all around. It was terrible. I ended up just carrying them for a lot of the trip, which was really annoying. So if you've got any gear like that that's a little bit bigger, if you're going to bring a camera, make sure that you have a dedicated way to hold it that's made to hold it, and don't try and just kind of invent something yourself because it'll get really old after 8 or 10 hours. Finally, my last tip would just be to take more photos. I took a decent amount of video. The quality's pretty bad because it was an older GoPro. And in general, you can only convey so much about an experience this awesome and this incredible. But I really wish I would have taken more stills and generally maybe taken a little bit more time just to like appreciate everything and see it for what it was. I think that stills are an easier thing to share than a video because you can just glance at it. You could frame a still in your house. You're not going to frame a video. So if you're going to go, then at those really beautiful scenic spots, stop and take a bunch of stills. Like clear off your phone before you go so you have all the memory, or clear off your camera and just take tons of photos. It is such a unique thing. And even in the midst of the canyon, you almost take it for granted because like you've been there for a long time, you're trying to get out. It's this, it's kind of panic inducing almost, like I need to get out of here. But remember how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is when you're in the midst of it, and just take tons and tons of photos. Those are my tips. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. I will see you tomorrow because tomorrow we run.